with the Dynam V2 Spitfire. This is kind of a follow-on video from the previous review that I'd done on the Dynam. Obviously I've used this quite extensively now. It's been in the air sort of over 20 times, you know. I've used it a lot. And obviously from the last review I'd done, I had flown it probably in excess of 8 to 9 times ish, and there was a few things that started to go wrong just after that video that I wanted to obviously address and obviously run through with people on, you know, just to make people aware that if you are going to buy one of these Dynams, that they are a bit temperamental, should I say. Now, the one thing that has stayed and worked consistently on this is the landing gear. They are folded up at the moment because the receiver's not in it, and you know, but other than that, they, as I say, I've never had no dramas with landing gear at all. They've been the only thing that's functioned flawlessly on the plane, which is quite funny because everyone seems to say that Dynam landing gear are crap, but I've had no dramas with them. I mean, as you can see, it's still in fairly good condition, apart from a bit of, you know, hanger rash and whatever, a few bits and scrapes. Now, obviously, the first thing you're going to notice is obviously the prop is different, and that isn't the only thing that's different on this plane. Shortly after that first review, I took it out at the flying field, and the bearings in the motor collapsed, and it kind of conked out mid-air, so it was, you know, on a dead stick all the way down. Luckily enough, got it down without any drama. Took the motor out and found that the bearings had just completely collapsed inside the motor. Now, for a motor that had only probably done 6 or 7 flights, or, you know, however many flights it was since I got it new, and that wasn't a lot. It was no more than, as I say, it couldn't have been more than 10 flights on it anyway. I don't see that as being very good. Now, you know, again, these are cheap, you know, and they are relatively well put together for obviously a cheap model. But again, the fact that obviously the motor had fallen apart, I think is quite a bad knock for a Dynam. You know, if you've bought it cheap, you'd expect the niggly bits to go on it, you know, like the landing gear and, you know, silly things and stuff like that, maybe the odd servo or something. But I mean, the actual motor just fell apart itself, so that kind of wound me up a little bit. But I, you know, kind of got over it. I replaced the whole power system in there. It's got a Turnigy brushless motor, sorry, and it's got a 70 amp red brick ESC from Hobby King. The Turnigy motor's from Hobby King as well. I run this on a 4S now. Now, obviously, the reason this blade is 2-blade is purely because with the 4-blade, there wasn't much noise, propeller noise, and obviously it was quite quiet. Now, obviously, for some people, that's ideally what they want, but also it was quite slow. And obviously, you can still run this 3 or 4S, regardless of obviously the ESC and a motor setup on here. Now, one of my buddies who I fly with quite regularly had got one of these, the version 1, that he'd kind of stripped and done as a project and put a Larry motor in it, and he tried this prop out and had brilliant results with it. You know, even on like a 3S, sort of half throttle, you're doing the same speed as you would have done with obviously the 4-blade at full throttle, and it works really well. Works a lot better. It's a lot nicer. It makes a lot nicer noise. It's a lot faster. I mean, obviously with the original setup in this, I think it was a 40 amp ESC. You could run that on a 3S. Even running that on a 4S, you was probably getting at about, I don't know, probably 50, 60 mile an hour. I mean, now it's pushing excess of kind of 80, 90 mile an hour. It is an absolute skyrocket. Now, obviously, being that it has a lot of motor power now and it is a lot faster, that has obviously put a lot of strain on other parts of the plane that I've had to obviously adapt and make, you know, stronger for obviously for it to fly well at that kind of speed. Now, what I have done is with obviously the motor in here is the motor in here is obviously a lot bigger. So everything in there is obviously moved further forward. It's all had to been trimmed and adapted to obviously fit everything on. But again, you know, it's still on there nice and tight, looks really nice. Round these seams of the wing, every seam the whole way around has been glued now. Just with a glue gun, just going around and filling all the seams. Obviously when you initially get the plane, these are just left free floating. There's no glue or call for any glue on the instructions in there. And obviously the front of this wing obviously flexes quite badly under, you know, the 4S power and obviously the new power plant. So to obviously keep that wing as rigid as possible, I've glued all that. If we flip her over, without bashing her about, right, again, obviously you can see the glue there, it's sort of extensive strengthening. It's been glued every seam along, see around where the fuselage goes, along there. All these little seams here as well have all been glued just to stop that wing flexing. Because what I found, obviously the higher speeds the wing obviously flexes a little bit more. Again, just any kind of points, just to try and make the wing as strong as possible. Obviously because of the bigger motor, and obviously the bigger ESC, more powerful battery, I've had to obviously put air vents in there. There's one there obviously for the entry to keep everything cool, and then obviously the exits there. I mean, as far as servos and everything goes, not had no drama. As I said, the landing gear have been fine. The only thing that I did find is after a few landings, the plastic bracing plate on the other side of the wing started to become unglued, and the actual whole landing gear was moving in the wing. Not a lot, but obviously it was moving slightly, so I've glued them down. Other than that, everything on the wing is okay. Now, the only other thing that I did want to touch on are the elevators. Right, obviously, after a little while, this connecting rod between the two elevator, the control surfaces here, actually started to come loose. So these were moving independent of each other. So when you were pulling up for you know, doing a nice bank roll or something like that, it was behaving really funny in there, and I couldn't fathom it out for love nor money. I thought there was a problem with the aileron servos, but it wasn't. It was that little connecting rod. So glued that back down, sorted that problem. Then obviously under the 4S power, it started behaving funny in the air. Again, started kind of pitching around and moving about. Now, what it was is these wingtips here. I mean, these control surface here is just foam, and obviously it comes around the front of the wing, and this is all just foam. There's no strengthening here at all when obviously you get it out of the box. Now, obviously, as you can see, it is only very thin, and obviously I can appreciate that I'm putting a lot more power in it, and it is moving a lot quicker. But let me just say, before I even upgraded it, I was having this issue, is that these tips were flexing independently of the actual control surface and bending here, and it was causing the plane to behave really funny in the air. Now, all I've done there is cut a plastic bracing plate, same the other side, and just glued that down flat with the wing. As you can see, it's bent round to the contour of obviously the tail there, and you know, it sits nice and flat. That has made it a completely different plane. It handles properly, you know, it's really sharp, and it doesn't waft about or do anything kind of strange when you put it into a, you know, any kind of maneuvers or anything in the air. Obviously, I've given a kind of good overview of what obviously was going on beforehand. But I mean, realistically, it was just a case as I just wanted to go through, obviously, the problems that I'd experienced with the plane shortly after the first review. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still think it's a really nice looking model. There's no denying that, to be fair, for the money, it actually, you know, really does look the part. Obviously, looks a bit sillier with the 2-blade on there, but again, once it's going through the air, you can't really tell, and it makes a cracking noise now with that 2-blade on there, and it is really good. But yeah, bit disappointed with obviously the few little bits that I had go wrong with it. But again, you know, we've kind of overcome it and upgraded it and actually made it a much better plane than it initially was. I think out of the box, these are very underpowered. And with obviously the correct motor upgrades and obviously the strengthening that's done on there, it's turned it into a completely different plane and has made it such a joy to fly. Obviously, I've got some footage of this flying now with the 4S and obviously the 3S power. Obviously we can compare it from the previous flight video, just to kind of show the difference in obviously, you know, performance and stuff. But yeah, as I say, this thing is on the money now. A lot better than when it came out of the box, I can tell you. But yeah, cheers for that, guys. Thank you very much. Cheers for watching. Bye.